The chair recognizes the honourable member for Long Island.
Madam Speaker, I'm pleased to rise on behalf of the wonderful people of Long Island, the people who have afforded me the opportunity to be here for a second consecutive term. Madam Speaker, I want to extend condolences to a few of my constituents in the passing of some of their family members. And so to the family of Mr. Preston Miller, that's Alita, Elvina, Clayton, I extend my sincerest condolences. To the family of Mr. Eric Burrows, Dedmansky, I extend condolences. And of course, to Ms. Millie Cartwright and her family, I extend condolences on the passing of her son, James Cartwright. Madam Speaker, I have a special love for the family islands. I'm an island boy, and that is where my heart lives. I love my island people. I know the struggles of living on an island for Isan. I know the struggles for Isan. The economic future, though, Madam Speaker, lies on the islands, especially the southern islands. And that also, these southern islands, the reality is we are, when it comes to hurricanes, our topography, makes it even better, that hilly landscape, etc. The waters around our islands are gold mines, watery gold mines. Long Island, Madam Speaker, could easily be a leading economic engine. We family islanders, though, we are tired of being treated as a colony of Nassau. We are not colonies of New Providence. Madam Speaker, whilst I understand the intent of this bill, I believe that this bill should have totally revamped the current system of dependency by family islanders on New Providence and central government. I'm a big supporter of empowering local government and greater decentralization of central government, where we ensure true decentralization, true empowerment is where we ensure that a reasonable percentage of the resources and taxes collected on each island is retained for that island's development. Madam Speaker, local government is supposed to bring government closer to the people, to empower local communities. And Madam Speaker, we have grown beyond being a colony to a nation of islands in need of a diversified and inclusive economy. And that can only come about as a result of rigorous strategic planning. And that strategic planning must include the family islands. And so the question is, what is the vision for each of our islands? What is the economic plan for each of our islands? And how does each industry, that is tourism, agriculture, fisheries, heavy and light manufacturing, creative arts, etc., how does each of those industries fit into the overall plan for the country and the plans for each individual island? Recently I called for islands such as my constituency to be made tax-free zones, if only for a period, for businesses to be able to import items duty-free, without any kind of tax, duty and VAT-free. Because one thing we know is even if an item is duty-free, you still pay in the VAT. Madam Speaker, I want to note here today, given that we are debating this bill, that Long Island had the first female chief counselor in the person of Mrs. Teresa Antoinette Cartwright, affectionately known as Anne, the wife of the Honorable Larry Cartwright, the first female chief counselor. Madam Speaker, local government was birthed from the belly of a progressive, forward-thinking F&M administration in 1996. And truthfully, whilst it has a ways to go, it has been good for us, but it can be better. When I read today's bill alongside the 1996 legislation. I wonder what has really changed that is really so transformative, the word transformative. You know, to use the leader's words, this is yet another case of tinkering around the edges. Yes, it is a change. It is a move in the right direction. However, Madam Speaker, I can come to that. Transformative is not the word I would use. The government could have gone much further, Madam Speaker. The bill does not empower local government as it should or as it could have. The bill is not as expansive as it could have been or as it should have been. This appears to be merely an attempt at the government being able to say that they fulfilled a campaign promise. The bill should have mandated the creation of community strategic development plans. That's not there. You know, Madam Speaker, to improve this bill, the government could address these issues by incorporating measures to enhance autonomy, more autonomy, capacity, financial independence, and participatory governance, aligning the legislation with global best practices. Madam Speaker, why is a chief counselor today in the same bill? Why is the chief counselor not now being made a mayor in line with other parts of the Commonwealth of Nations? I could be mistaken, but I think we're the only country in the Commonwealth that still uses chief counselor. They've all converted to mayors. Local council leaders are referred to as mayors. Why are we still behind? You look at the United States, for example. You know, they have mayors, they have governors of each state. In Canada has a prime minister for the entire country, and a premier for the provinces of Canada. Why couldn't we legislate that the mayor's office be implemented and it be enhanced with a full-time chief of staff, an accountant, a secretary, a cleaner? That's moving forward, Madam Speaker. Let's be real. Town committees have always been able to approve plans since 1996. This bill has only expanded the scope. Local government has always held town meetings. There's nothing new there. Levying fees for public spaces is a sprinkle compared to the taxes collected on our islands. There was a time, Madam Speaker, in the past when power was not so centralized. Family islands had their own police. You know, my grandparents told me about district constables. You don't have that anymore. Think about this. Whenever a community attains a certain level of development, that place becomes known as a city. However, isn't it telling, Madam Speaker, that we only have 2 cities in the entire Bahamas? What does that say about our growth and development?
The chair recognizes the honourable member for Freetown.
Madam Speaker, the nomenclature of designation of a city requires the place to have a cathedral. And thus far, there are only 2 cathedrals in this country, Christ Church Cathedral along the way, and the Pro-Cathedral of Christ the King, which is why Freeport is a city.
Thank you, honourable member.
Madam Speaker, here again, this is a designation that could easily be made, but I'm speaking about growth and development in these places. What about the growth and development on these family islands over the last 51 years? At this point in our development, Madam Speaker, each or most of our major islands should have been more established than we are today. Or is the central government too afraid to really share the power? Madam Speaker, we need a real devolution of power and authority in the Bahamas. Family island development, if we want to be honest, remains at a low point. The old model of governance and development is absolutely out of step with what is needed to progress the Bahamas. We need to change the model and grant true autonomy and power to the islands. Family Island administration needs to be changed in general. Frankly, I'm a strong proponent of amending the Constitution to allow for a more meaningful participation by family islands via the enshrinement of elected local government. Madam Speaker, the government needs to develop tailored capacity building programs for family islands to address skill and expertise gaps. This should have been, as I said earlier, there should have been a greater devolution of power and responsibility to local government in this bill. Why don't we have district courts or district police? What about even having a district attorney? You know, when I think about the consolidated fund, Madam Speaker, and the monies that come from our islands, the millions that come from each of these islands annually, goes into this black hole, and very little of it returns to us. I think our budget, I know for a fact, our budget in Long Island for local government is well under $1 million a year. And I'm certain that much more than $1 million comes from Long Island to the consolidated fund. Madam Speaker, this bill would have been better served if it spoke to a district fund, like the parochial fund, the parochial fund that was established in Jamaica, which earmarks tax dollars for their local governments. You know, in Jamaica, there are 14 local authorities, comprising 12 parish councils, and then, of course, Kingston and the St. Andrews Corporation. Madam Speaker, they have elections every 4 years, but these authorities have the power to raise revenue, for example, from property taxes, licenses, fees, and fines. They also receive transfers from national government from time to time for specific purposes. Local authorities, this is in Jamaica, are responsible for local infrastructure. They're responsible for local infrastructure. And they share responsibility with national government for other services such as environmental health, the supply of water, and the management of development projects. This fund that is in Jamaica, the Parochial Revenue Fund, is a major source of transfers to local governments in Jamaica. This fund is based on receipts, like I said, from property tax, fines, and 2/3 of receipts they actually get 2/3. These various communities get 2/3 of the receipts from any tax on motor vehicles. So, Madam Speaker, what has happened here to the Family Island Development Fund? We heard about that fund, but we've heard nothing about it since. What happened to it? We talk about collecting fees from public spaces, but let's go to Long Island. No, we had, in the last administration, I think 3 parks on tap to be done, properly developed, etc. We need green spaces. We don't have any proper parks on the islands. I know that the bill speaks to local government being able to collect fees. But those fees are from what? Park rentals and cleanups. Parks, how much money could you possibly get from that? And when local government raises money, where will it go? What about islands such as mine that are a check and cash district and don't have a bank? Where will the money be deposited? Wouldn't that just go back into the consolidated fund? Local government districts should have been empowered to collect property tax and to be able to share in some of the proceeds to fund capital improvements in our communities. You know, Madam Speaker, the Long Island District sent me a few notes, and they talked about a capital budget allocation to assist with works. They talked about them being given a vehicle to be able to move throughout the community. There are various recommendations that they would have laid over to the persons who came to Long Island to meet with them for suggestions and recommendations. Madam Speaker, Interestingly, this bill appears to empower the Family Island Administrator. A lot of power appears to have been moved back to the Administrator in the vein of the old-time commissioners. I took note of that. So we might, if we're going to move power back to the Commissioner or the Administrator, we might as well just change the name back to Commissioner. Much more, Madam Speaker, should have been decentralized. Much more. Madam Speaker, recently, local government received a 10% increase in its allocation, which is welcome, but not nearly enough. Be it as it may, local government received a 10% increase. Now, local government practitioners on my island believe that much of that is being taken back because now local government is going to have to pay board members, which we have no problems with, you know. We have a problem with now trying to find out who's going to fund this. You have to pay board members anywhere from $75 to $100. Plus you have to pay, or plus local government practitioners are all getting increases. And so the question is, where will this money come from in the current budget? Will there be an increase in the Long Island local government budget? We want to know. Madam Speaker, Family Islanders have been calling, as I said, for a percentage of the revenue collected on our islands to remain and to be reinvested into our islands' communities. We want to know how much money has been collected in Long Island and how much of it have we gotten back this year, last year, the year before, etc. We've all heard the current complaints about delays in monthly allocations being sent to the various local government districts. My island is no different. Madam Speaker, we want to have local government employees defined. I don't think this bill goes into addressing that. You know, you have people like Ms. Beryl Fox, who retired. She worked for local government for about 20 years or so. And there are others who work 10, 15, 20 years. And when they retire, they have no pension. They have nothing. These people have been employed temporarily, and it's most regrettable that they go into retirement with nothing. So we have to find a way to regularize these folks. Madam Speaker, when I think about local government and local government being able to benefit, much like Jamaica, we could have 2/3 of the road fees. Islands could have 10% of the real property tax, 10% of road licensing, 2/3 of road licensing fees, a chunk of whatever the VAT is collected from the island. That could be 10 to 15% of all VAT collected, customs, etc. This would actually take some of the pressure off central government to empower locals to do this. Madam Speaker, another observation about this bill. This bill also appears to limit who can run. If you look at the 6th schedule of the bill, Madam Speaker, it speaks to people like people who are police reservists and vice principals of schools. And interestingly, the chief counselor in Freeport is the vice principal of a school and a police reservist. So how does that impact her? Does it mean that she cannot run because she's a vice principal of a school and a police reservist? The act has become more restrictive, Madam Speaker, as to who can participate and who can run. Local government is supposed to invite a cross-section of people, a broad cross-section of people who should be able to run. For example, if one is an accountant or a lawyer, but a reserve police officer on the side, or a vice principal or principal, why should they not be able to run? Huh? I have known, that is not so. That is not so. I have known, I know
the chair
persons.
recognizes the
I know
honourable member for
persons who are
Freetown.
police reservists. I know people who are.
Point of order, Madam
The chair
Speaker.
recognizes.
Knowing people who occupy offices that they oughtn't to occupy are two separate things. Somebody who is a police officer, yes, they can occupy the office while they're a reservist, but they cannot work as a reservist while they occupy the office. And so they ought to make a choice.
Thank you, honorable member.
Madam Speaker, this bill specifically in the sixth schedule restricts police reservists. It restricts police reservists in the sixth schedule of the bill, and it also restricts vice principals and principals. It is laid out. So in the case of the chief counselor for Freeport, she's a vice principal on one hand and a police reservist on the other hand. So she has a double restriction. Madam Speaker, what this does is it limits people so the best people can't step forward and run. And that is really troubling.
The chair recognizes the honorable member for Central and
The
South
current
Utah.
act, I'll just give a brief overview. The current act speaks to principal, head teacher of any school, custom officer, immigration officer, just to name a few. So there were restrictions prior, and there were some challenges on the definition of head teacher and things of that sort. So the committee felt that they needed to clearly define some of these. So there was always restrictions. This is nothing new.
So where was the confusion around head teacher? Y'all went to vice principal.
Madam Speaker, the bill at the sixth schedule, the bill, sixth schedule number 9, an administrative officer of any school, which is only maintained by the minister responsible for education, including senior mistress, senior master, principal, or vice principal. But then it goes further, and then it says, at 13, a local constable or police reserve officer. Okay, and I know of many reservists, including the current chief counsel in Long Island, who was a reservist, and there were others who were reservists who served in local government. This one, conveniently, this one here, this bill, of course, now broadens, it restricts more people from being able to participate. Right? What's the point of having local government if so many people are restricted? And it's supposed to be an apolitical exercise.
Public servant and at the same time chairman.
Madam Speaker, this bill
We want what he had.
mandates town committees to seek ministerial approval for acquiring or disposing property,
Not everything he got,
hiring staff, entering contracts beyond their
We
term.
want that one thing.
just the office.
It also, Madam Speaker, states that any key decisions, such as defining district boundaries, amending schedules, and appointing local government leaders, are centralized under the Minister of Local Government. This undermines the principles of decentralization and autonomy and could limit true financial independence and lead to bureaucratic bottlenecks. This is unimaginative. It extends, obviously, central government's reach, but it's unimaginative. There are no substantial provisions for local governments to generate their own revenue, as I stated earlier. Madam Speaker, I think that it gives the minister too much power, broad ministerial powers. The minister's ability to unilaterally redefine district boundaries or dissolve districts raises concerns about potential misuse of authority. Madam Speaker, the Local Government Bill 2024 lacks several features commonly found in municipalities and developed regions or developed places like New York, Florida, California, London, and other developed countries and cities. These features, Madam Speaker, are drawn from best practices, and they said if we incorporate these features, it could significantly improve decentralization and local government effectiveness. And so, Madam Speaker, in the United States, states like New York, Florida, and California, as well as cities in the UK, often have, as I said, significant financial independence. And so what we need to do here, Madam Speaker, to make this bill better, let's allow councils to set property, or let's allow councils to collect taxes or to get a percentage of the taxes. Let's allow councils to create a municipal bond system for funding large projects in the communities and on these islands. Madam Speaker, in developed countries, local governments in places like California and London manage integrated services. Madam Speaker, I'm asking. I can't hear myself, Madam Speaker. Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, local governments in places like California and London manage integrated services like public transit, housing, education, and public health. For instance, the New York Metropolitan Transportation Authority oversees a sprawling public transport system, or London's borough councils, where they work on housing and waste management. And so this bill, Madam Speaker, whilst it focuses on licensing and building permits, it does not empower councils to manage transportation, healthcare, or education. Madam Speaker, when it comes to technology and data use, cities like New York and London, they lead in using technology for governance. Smart city initiatives leverage data to improve public services, from traffic management to online permitting systems. This bill, Madam Speaker, does not incorporate e-governance or digital service delivery. There's no mention of using technology for smart governance, public engagement, or service optimization. Madam Speaker, what it should include, this bill should seek to include e-governance platforms for citizen engagement and service delivery, and it should mandate digital record keeping for transparency and efficiency. And then, of course, Madam Speaker, as it relates to citizen engagement, pursuant to this bill, public engagement is limited to town meetings without structured mechanisms for deeper engagement. What this bill should have done is introduce participatory budgeting, introduce citizens panels in the various communities, and mandated regular public consultations and feedback systems. Madam Speaker, environmental management has also not been prioritized in this bill. And it should have featured mandates, since we talk about climate change so much, it should feature mandates for renewable energy projects, sustainable tourism initiatives, and coastal management plans. And then you think about regional collaboration. When you look at places like Florida in the United States and California, they emphasize inter-municipal cooperation, such as shared transit systems and regional environmental initiatives. We have no framework, Madam Speaker, for councils to collaborate on cross-island projects. None. And so why haven't we considered establishing regional councils for multi-island planning? Why haven't we considered promoting shared service agreements for resources like water or waste management? Municipalities in foreign countries, in countries like the UK and the United States, give heavy consideration to environmental management. Environmental management is definitely not a focal point of this bill. Madam Speaker, local councils in New York, Florida, and London play a central role in urban planning, controlling zoning laws, and enforcing sustainable development guidelines. This bill only briefly touches on building permits without detailing zoning control. What this bill should have done is provide councils authority over zoning and land use planning. What this should have done was proximate mixed-use development to support economic growth. Madam Speaker, the bill does not include provisions for local management of public safety or emergency responses. U.S. cities mandate local police forces, fire departments, and disaster preparedness initiatives. Where's that here? Where's that here? Madam Speaker, and then, of course, there's long-term policy planning, right? Long-term policy planning. should require councils to prepare long-term plans addressing infrastructure, economic development, and social needs. Madam Speaker, true local government is when our family island communities can have significant autonomy in revenue generation, including property taxes, etc. When we can operate robust systems for waste management and emergency services, public transit, and community policing, tailored to our local needs. When we can use advanced technologies for urban planning, citizenship engagement, public services. When we have substantial control over land use, including approving developments and implementing sustainability measures. Where there's collaborative planning, where local governments can manage healthcare, education, and housing policies, heavily supported by national funding. Where there's greater participatory democracy. And while I am at it, Madam Speaker, despite the PLP campaign promises to include New Providence and local governance reforms, the bill excludes the island, perpetuating the continued centralization of power and governance disparities. The exclusion of New Providence from this bill, where the majority of the population resides, undermines the principle of equitable governance reform. This decision perpetuates the continued centralization of power in Nassau, limiting the broader benefits of reform. That is what we would like to see, Madam Speaker. We see the AG promising that they're going to form some kind of statutory body to govern Nassau, the city of Nassau. That was a year or so ago. We haven't seen anything about it since. So, Madam Speaker, as I conclude, Madam Speaker, I want to also note yet again that in talking about infrastructural issues and challenges in my constituency, I'm requesting that we also have a local Ministry of Works officer hired from among us and assigned to us to ensure that the degradation and deterioration of our infrastructure that we see is quickly addressed with quick reports so that this doesn't continue, we don't continue to have the issues that we are facing on the island. In that vein, Madam Speaker, I rest.
The chair recognizes the honourable member for Vauxhall.
Madam Speaker, I just wanted to raise this as a point of order. At the beginning of his address or statement here this evening, this afternoon, the member described Long Island and the other islands of the country as colonies of the central government. I think colony is a pejorative. And these islands are not colonies of New Providence. They're not colonies of New Providence. And I don't want that to be hanging out in the air there. There's a member of Parliament who's here who represents Long Island, and he spoke up for them. So I don't understand how that gets to be a colony. Now, the second thing is, the founders of this country decided that the Constitution of the country would construct the country in a particular way. It's not a federal government. It's a unitary state. And if I heard you talk about constitutional reform, that's fine. But the Bahamian people ought to understand that the system as it exists now is a unitary state. With the power, that's your prerogative. But at the moment, that's the system you have, a unitary state with a parliament in New Providence, which is responsible for running the country. The last point I'd make is there's always this attempt to say that New Providence is somehow underfunding or defunding what happens in terms of the support of the islands of the Bahamas outside New Providence. If you get the statistics on the revenue of the Bahamas versus what's actually spent in these islands, in each island, and I would say even including Grand Bahama, the revenues are more, the money that is spent in those islands is much more than what is collected in any of those islands, including Grand Bahama. So I think that, including Grand Bahama, that's the story around the country. So, and the fact is, we've just, you know, I thought the member was going to get up and congratulate the Minister of Works for paving the road to Dunmore's, which has been outstanding for years.
The chair recognizes the honorable
Madam
member.
Speaker, I spoke on the road in Dunmore's last week, at the last sitting, and the member wasn't here, the member for Central and South Lutra. I have expressed my gratitude to them, I think in text message, but anyhow, I do so publicly now. I appreciate the work at Dunmore's. I've sent you a communication with reference to a number of other pieces of settlements and roadway and so on. So I'm grateful for that. Now, Madam Speaker, what I also want to say is this. We have been treated, the Family Islands, as colonies of Nassau. Nassau gets all of the development. Most things are centralized here. We get the scraps. That's just the reality of it, okay? Many family islands lack development. We cannot move ahead with the family island being in the position that we are in, okay? For quite some time. For quite some time. Look at my record.
The chair recognizes
Look at
the
my
honorable
record.
member for Fox Hill.
It's again factually incorrect. That's factually incorrect. The statistics simply do not show that. If you're going on a revenue basis, I just said if you're going on a revenue basis, what is spent in each island, including Grand Bahama, exceeds the revenue in each island. In each island. Well, you can the figures are there. You can disaggregate it. You can disaggregate it. Long Island, aren't you in the middle now of negotiating to do all the roads in Long Island? I could assure you that the revenue collected will not be able to pay for those roads. Will not. So, you know, don't give people that impression. People know, Madam Speaker, people know that you got schools, clinics, the police, the roads, the subsidy of the freight, the water, the electricity, all of that. That's provided by the national government in each island, And no one is, sorry? Yeah, everything is subsidized. And the reason I'm concerned about it, right, the reason why our founding fathers decided to go with the model they have is, remember, there was an island that wanted to secede from the country. Absolutely. So they chose a model that would try and hold the country together. And you should not, in my view, be pushing a theory that somehow we are underfunding these islands, not to push them away. We are constrained to keep this country together by the consent of the governed, you know, and this ain't a forum for sarcasm right now.
Madam Speaker, in no way, let me be clear, in no way was I pushing for any secession or any kind of breaking up of the archipelago. Far from it.
That's the PLP word.
Far from it. The reality is, the family islands, we have not gotten what we ought to have gotten. We are far behind in terms of development. Our infrastructure is lagging. Our services is lagging. Everybody knows this, right? Obviously we wouldn't be able to contribute. We wouldn't be able to contribute. Obviously, let me finish. Obviously we would not be able to contribute to the consolidated fund the amounts that he's talking about. However, what we are saying, Madam Speaker, is we would like to retain a percentage of whatever comes out of the island so that our local government can address a lot of the issues prior to it becoming to the point of central government having to swoop in.
Fox Hill.
I want to reinforce this, right? The island of Long Island has roads from north to south that were put in by the Bahamas government off the taxpayers of the entire country, the Consolidated Fund. There are schools, there are teachers, there are police officers, there's a telephone system from north to south, there's power from north to south in Long Island. Who put that there? And to say that you don't have, the government did so. The government did so. The government. No. I am not arguing, member. I am not arguing with that point. You have a right to advocate what you wish to advocate. All I'm saying is, do not give the impression to the Bahamian public that the people in New Providence or the government in New Providence is treating the Family Islands as a colony. That is not correct, because every service which is available in New Providence is available in Long Island today. Every service, you name it, it is available. There's not one. Passport office, clinic, dock, whatever you want, it's available. Now, he's arguing that it should be more. That's fine. I agree. It should be plenty if we can do so. But it's not a colony. It's not a colony.
Thank you, Honorable
Madam Speaker,
Member.
I
Long
stated,
Island.
let me repeat. I said we feel as if we are treated as a colony of New Providence. Madam Speaker, what do colonies do? What do colonies do? Yes. What do colonies do, Madam Speaker? Well, the money is collected in a colony. It goes back. It goes back to where? Where does it go, Madam Speaker?
To the PLP.
Any money that is collected in a colony goes to the mother country. Well, if you look at it that way, all of the funds collected in the islands go to New Providence into this black hole called the Consolidated Fund. Very little returns to the island. Certainly local government, the budget at local government in Long Island is about $700,000 or a little less. If you look at what we get back in terms of infrastructure, it is not, we are lagging behind. We are lagging behind. Lagging.
Yes, sir.
He keeps persisting in this. He's persisting in this. He's persisting in this. He's unable to show that any service that is available in New Providence is not available in Long Island. Banking is a private matter. Banking is a private matter. And when you start saying someplace is a colony, you are the representative. You're here. How's it a colony? You're elected. You're elected. You're elected. You're elected. And you sit in the House of Assembly speaking for the people of Long Island. Friggin' colony.
Long Island.
Government services. I didn't say government service. This member is trying to misinterpret what I said. I said we have poor roads. I said we are lagging in terms of horrible roads. Have you been to Long Island?
No.
I said that our facilities need upgrades. They've deteriorated. We are behind the 8 ball when you look at other places in this country. And that is a fact. And Madam Speaker, I have also said, I have never said here that we did not have some of the services or access to certain things. There are lots of things that we don't have access to. We don't have labs. We got to come to the hospital to do blood works. Yep. There are many things that we lack. Okay? So, but I'm saying to you, basic services like roads, we need proper roads. Our roads are, we play golf plant banana suckers in the roads. Okay? What's misstating about that? The road from Sims, the road from Stella Maris. The road from Stella Maris to Bank Ground to Seymour's, which started under us. The road from Stella Maris, that's a small swath of roadway in Long Island. That's a small swath of roadway in Long Island. There's much more work to be done. Much more work to be done. Much more. Much more. No. There's much more work to be done. Much more. Much more. The reality is, what do you mean? Of course. Madam Speaker, we lack many resources. We can have improvements in healthcare. We have infrastructural challenges. We have horrible roads. We have a lot of issues in Long Island. A lot of issues. I'm not going to have him come here and whitewash those issues. I'm not going to have him do that. And I stand on the point that local government needs to be properly funded. Okay? Okay?
That shows the inequality.
We need much more to be done by the central government, by this PLP central government in Long Island. Whether it's healthcare, road works, education, whatever it is, certainly infrastructural issues must be addressed. Infrastructural issues, we have a lot of infrastructural issues. We don't even have...
Thank you. And members. Members. All right. Members, as many